and covering us. It looks like a lot of you guys are upstairs in the press box, and hopefully get a chance to interact with our players outside later on today. I think, a lot of you guys I got a chance to interact with at Big Ten Media Days. So once again, we appreciate that. It's great to be back out at practice on the grass with the guys running around. I think we've had a really productive off season and summer. Obviously, from an offensive perspective with Coach Yursich and what we're doing from an installation standpoint, the changes in the NCAA rules have helped with that in terms of, some of the walkthrough things that you're able to do. So that's been really helpful. The terminology that we were able to keep the same, and I think that always helps. So far, so good. And I think obviously the staff that we got around him has helped too. So excited about what we're going to do offensively. Excited about, our identity being similar to what it's been for the majority of our time here. Back to spreading the field, making people defend 53 1/3, creating explosive plays, trying to put as many defenders in conflict as possible. So excited about, kind of getting back to our identity and who we've been. On defense, obviously the consistency that we've had with Brent Pry and our defensive staff has been huge. Brent has obviously led the way there for a long time here at Penn State and with me for a long time. So really excited about what we're doing there. On the defensive side of the ball, just continuing to build our foundation in what we've been able to do from a fundamental standpoint, from a scheme standpoint, from a technique standpoint over the last 8 years. And obviously we've recruited well as well. So the new staff members on offense and defense with Coach Poindexter, on defense, I guess is the main new guy on defense. John Scott's now been here for 2 years. And then on offense, obviously, Mike Yursich is the biggest change. So I think those guys are doing really good things and excited about that. And then, Coach Lorig on special teams, having all three of those specialists back and the experience that they have gained. And, Joe now going into his second season and understanding how we operate, me having a better feel for how he does things. We got a long history together. I don't know if you guys know this or if I've mentioned this before. Me and Joe were roommates, I think, in 98. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Either way, a long time ago at Idaho State, we were roommates. So we go way back. He's doing a great job for us, and I've been really pleased with our leadership. Our strength staff did a great job in terms of preparing our guys. We're either bigger, stronger, and faster than we've ever been, or we're part of the argument pretty much in every category or metric, however you want to put it. So I like where we're at. The first day of practice yesterday went well. You guys will get a chance to see a little bit of it today. But we couldn't be more excited to be out there on the grass, working together. The plan for having a full Beaver Stadium, competing, in the Big Ten, opening up obviously week 1 with Wisconsin, tremendous challenge. And then being able to get back here at home, in front of our fans, which we haven't been able to do for a long time. So again, appreciate everybody being on here. Look forward to the opportunity to answering everybody's questions. And hopefully we'll be back in person sooner rather than later.
We'll start with Tyler Donahue.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good, Tyler. How are you?
Great. Wanted to ask about Jesse Luketa. Where will he be practicing within your defense this month?
Yeah, so it's not really a monthly deal. We're gonna kind of split his time, and I would say probably more of his time will be spent at defensive end in training camp, just because he has such a foundation and history at the linebacker position already within the same scheme. So we want to get him to the point where he's really comfortable and effective in what we're going to ask him to do at defensive end. Obviously, we still need to keep him sharp at linebacker as well. I see him playing both roles. And then I think there's some things that we can do with packages to take advantage of that where people aren't sure whether he's playing a linebacker in our scheme or a defensive end, and how they're going to account for him in the running game or how they're going to account for him in pass protection. So there's a number of reasons, that we're doing it. One, to gain an advantage through a guy that's got a unique skill set, and also to help us with some depth.
Audrey Snyder.
Hey, James. Going off of that, wanted to ask you about the rest of your defensive ends. Between Adisa Isaac, Nick Tarberton, the rest of those guys, is that group developing as you had hoped, or where do you kind of think they stand?
Yeah, so I guess lead with Adisa. Adisa will not be available. I think you guys are aware of that. I know our local media is usually pretty aware of the pulse of our program, what's going on. Adisa had an off-season injury, not during football training, but had an off-season injury, and he will be most likely not available for the season. You guys know typically I don't get into injuries unless it's something that are going to keep them out for a significant amount of time. He is doing unbelievably well, so you never know the way medicine is now, and Adisa's been phenomenal in terms of doing what he needs to do to get back as quickly as he possibly can. So you never know, but he'll be out for a significant amount of time. So you talk about Tarburton, kind of Lucetta and Vanover. That group of guys. Tarburton is a guy that we've always been really excited about. Since we brought him here. Has had some situations in terms of staying healthy consistently that made it difficult for him to have a bigger impact. He's as healthy as he's ever been. He's been able to practice on a really consistent basis now for a long period of time. And he's got such a great motor and intelligence, and he's physical. So we're excited about what he's going to do. You're going to see obviously an increased amount of playing time and opportunities for him. We already talked about Jesse Lucetta. Amin Vanover is a guy that we look as a swing guy that can play defensive end, which he did all last year, or D tackle. He's got the size and the growth potential to play inside, but he's also got the quickness and the understanding and the scheme at defensive end, and what we're asking those guys to do. On the other side, AK Ebikidi, is obviously has been kind of rave review since he showed up on campus. Has tested well, has gotten bigger and stronger, and obviously he's been a very productive football player over his career, and we plan on continuing that and really taking it to a whole nother level. Smith Vilbert's a guy that there's a lot of excitement about right now. Obviously we've recruited Smith, ended up having a really strong senior year, came on, was a fairly high-level basketball player out of high school, has the body type and athleticism that you're looking for, and he continues to take strides, and there's a lot of excitement about him. And then Zariah Fisher, another guy that we recruited knowing that he could be a linebacker or transition to defensive end. I think Zariah is 260 plus pounds right now and still looks somewhat skinny. Really long arms, has gotten great in the weight room. We're expecting big things from him. And then there's some other young guys, that I won't list at this time. But after one day practice, you think maybe some of those guys may be able to factor in. So, when I go through this for the players and for the media, it's not a foregone conclusion that somebody can't win a starting job or somebody that I didn't mention can't earn a more significant role over the next couple weeks.
Mark Brennan.
Hey, James, I wonder if you could give us a little heads up on what's going on with your interior linemen, especially Eric Wilson. And just on a semi-related note, how much scrambling had to be done to keep this thing going, the media day, with all the shifting stuff? And are you looking forward to actually being able to do these things in person sometime soon? Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so when you talk about interior offensive linemen, we think we got a really good group of guys that are competing for those three inside spots at guard, center, and guard. So you're talking about, a combination of Wiggin, Miranda, Scruggs, Wormley, who's kind of really come on and factored in, Zalar, Des Holmes, Eric Wilson, and Dawkins. That group, we think there's obviously there's other guys that could factor in there. But that's a group that we think there's going to be tremendous competition from. And there's going to be a lot of moving parts there until we figure out how to get the best 5 on the field. And then not only that, who's going to be the first guy inside? Is it going to be truly a right guard is backed up by another right guard? Or is it, if you talk about the 3 interior positions, is it just the next best available who could play either side at guard or center? We'll see how that kind of plays out. It's not as simple as people think. The footwork is different. The stance is different. So some guys will be able to do that and have the flexibility, and some guys who may feel it's just better off that you just stay at one position inside. So although the assignments and everything are pretty much the same, it's still different from a footwork perspective. So I think that'll be great competition. When you talk about kind of all the hoops and jumps and hoops that we've had to jump through over the last year to give you guys the information and the access that is needed. Obviously we've learned a lot. Today's a really good example. That we have the ability to use Zoom if we need to. I think I would love to get back face to face with you all, especially the local media that works with us day in and day out, 365 days a year. We want to be able to give you all the access possible, and being face to face, I think, helps with that. It could be a combination of being outside, maybe doing this outside in that type of setting, or it's coming to some type of agreement to come inside and have a conversation where we're all willing to share our information. Obviously we can't mandate that, but if people want to and are comfortable sharing it, and the local media all get together and you guys are comfortable doing that, maybe we can work something out. That's kind of above my head and how we would handle that and what we do. But I want you to understand, for myself and Chris and Greg, we just want to do everything we possibly can to give you guys as much access and as much face time as possible.
Joe Giuliano.
James.
Hey, Joe.
2 questions I have. One, what is the main difference in Mike Yurcich's offense from what you've been running prior? And the second one is, how has Sean Clifford adapted to some of the new stuff, concepts that you're working with?
So when you say prior, Joe, are you talking last year, or are you talking really since we've been here?
I guess going back to Joe Moorhead, I would think.
Yeah, I think it's similar to that. I think if you look, even when we first got here at Vanderbilt, we had a lot of spread concepts. Then we kind of took it to a whole nother level with Joe. So we're back to that. And, that's really kind of who we've wanted to be the entire time that we've been here. And, with the athletes that we have at receiver and at tight end and running back, that was another big part of it, is just getting as many guys involved, getting as many guys touches, getting as many guys in space as possible. But then you still want to make sure you have the ability to run with power, and you want to be able to run in situational football. You want to be able to run the ball when everybody in the stadium knows you have to run the ball and need to run the ball, whether that is low red zone, whether that is short yardage, whether that is coming out, or obviously when that is 4-minute offense. We want to make sure that we can kind of serve all those different masters.
Andrew Clay.
Mark Andrew Clay, WTAJ. My question also about the offense. You've now installed offenses in the last 2 seasons. Can you kind of compare and contrast the timeline and kind of the level of install at this point this year as it compared to last season?
Yeah, it's really hard for me to compare anything to last season, because it was so different. And there was so many different limiting factors and rules that didn't allow us to do it. So You know, even being in the indoor facility, being able to get the walkthroughs that we want to get in the off season, the time that we've been able to get with our players face to face. You know, we weren't even practicing as a team, you know, this point last year. And I'm not even talking about, you know, the cancellation of the season. I'm talking about when we got back, they were split practices. So it just was very different. So it's hard to compare anything to how it was last season. I don't think that's necessarily fair, you know, to some of the coaches, you know, that were put in that situation last year. But I love where we're at. You know, we're way ahead. I think, you know, the conversations that I've had with Brent Pry and Coach Yursich in terms of how we install, this isn't just like the Wild West where, you know, some programs just kind of roll the ball out and go. We try to keep it as structured as possible so our defense can be prepared for what they're going to see at practice every single day, so our offense can be prepared for what they're going to see every single day, and do it no different than a teacher with a lesson plan, right? Part whole and build up to it. So you're getting more base looks early on, and then you get into more of the blitz and exotic looks as you grow. But I will say this, we're probably more aggressive than we've ever been in terms of the number of defenses we're seeing early in camp, and the same on offense. Part of that is, I think, just kind of the style that we want to play and how we want to do it. And part of that is how we've been able to maximize the off-season walkthroughs from an NCAA and Big Ten perspective.
Corey Geiger.
Hi, James. This
Hi, Corey.
may be a little similar to what was just asked, but I'm curious how long you think it could take for the offense to really be what you hope that it will be. The 2016 offense was great, but it took a few weeks for that to happen. So what's your realistic expectation for what this offense could be early versus middle and late season?
Well, you know, to your point, based on our schedule, it better be early, right? I think everybody's aware of that, you know. So I think we've approached it that way, right? You know, whether you like to admit it or not, when the players see that game to open the season, it has an impact. You know, I think the coaches always try to have a sense of urgency. We try to run a program where our players have a sense of urgency, and it's not really dependent on the opponent. It's about our process. But we need to be shooting on all cylinders, you know, come week one. And that's how quickly can we learn? How quickly can we gain confidence? How quickly can we execute in really all three phases? And what type of positions can we put our players in, you know, in Beaver Stadium or over at the Lash practice facility, to give our guys the best chance to be able to walk into Wisconsin Stadium and feel prepared and confident for that environment. I know I'm excited about it. I've never been there. Obviously, you guys know I lived in Wisconsin when I was with the Green Bay Packers. So I have a lot of familiarity with the program from that, and obviously now being in the Big Ten and watching what they've been able to do in the few times that we've played them. But I just haven't been there yet. We played them, I think, once at home and won the Big Ten championship. So we're looking forward to the opportunity and seeing the environment and getting another experience in the Big Ten.
Allie Berube.
Hey, James, how are you and your family?
Good. How are you, Allie?
Good.
Thanks for asking.
Of course. My question is about kind of the way that fans are looking at this season as kind of a return to normalcy. What do you think, in your mind, the state of Pennsylvania, the student body, the fans need to do to make sure that we can have 107,000 people inside Beaver Stadium this season?
Well, I think the first thing is, you know, I hope that everybody understands, you know, we're probably not and never will in terms of just turning back to normal. We all should have learned something from this. We all should have grown from this. I know Penn State has. I know Penn State football has. You know, we've made some modifications. We've taken advantage of new technology. We want everybody to have an unbelievable experience, and we want to get back to sold-out Beaver Stadiums come our first opportunity. But I think we also have to, you know, we all have to make some sacrifices, right? Our fourth core value is sacrifice, and if that means we all have to give a little something up to do that, I would hope for us to be able to get back together in there in a family reunion and tailgating and an increase of 250,000 people in town, and what that means to the state and what that means to the community and the businesses and the restaurants and bars and hotels and just for the experience, right? The experience here in Happy Valley. So, you know, this is not a political statement. It's become a political issue, and I think I want to make sure that people understand that's not what this is. But the more people that can get vaccination, whether you completely agree with it or not, you know, maybe to protect others. I think you guys know this kind of hits very close to home. My daughter's actually in the hospital right now. So these things hit really close to home. So, you know, I just think the more people that can say, look, whether I completely agree with it or not, I'm going to get the vaccination. I'm going to wear masks when appropriate and give us the best opportunity to be in that stadium and as close back to what we describe as normal as possible. Because I think we have all seen, we already went through this once. There's some mask mandates out there now that are coming back. There's some variants out there. So, you know, obviously all of us kind of making some choices and sacrificing together is going to give us the best opportunity to fill that stadium up, to have a home field advantage, be able to bring significant impact to our community and our state. And to be honest with you, I'd love our students and you know, the people in Happy Valley and my players to be able to experience it, because last year was not a true Penn State experience. So I am asking and pleading for everybody to do everything they possibly can to give us the best chance to get back to what you mentioned in the beginning, you know, how we would probably describe normal. Thank you.
Eldon Hayes.
Hey James, how are you?
Good.
Hey, earlier this spring, I spoke to Sean.
I'm sorry, could you start over? You're a little muffled.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay. Earlier this spring, I talked to Sean about having 4 different offensive coordinators during his time here. From your perspective, being a former quarterback, what are some of the challenges and benefits that provides for having that much turnover in that amount of time?
Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of hit it from both perspectives. So I think the first thing is, obviously you'd love to have as much consistency as you possibly can, so that you can just continue to build on the foundation. You can just continue to build and evolve and grow. And even with this same offense, you're still going to tweak some things and make some changes every single year to grow the package, to expand the package, to maybe emphasize an area that you think, you know, you can grow in, and obviously to play to your team's strengths and maybe hide some of your deficiencies. I think that's the first thing. But I do think there's value. I really do. All of the coordinators that we have had here are fantastic people and fantastic coaches. And I know myself and our team have learned from all of them. And, you know, the good Lord don't give you everything, right? And all of them have tremendous strengths that Sean's been able to learn from and grow. And then as much as we can teach using a same as philosophy, where on special teams, we're using the same terms that we use on defense when we're talking about coverage, you know, when we're talking about the different tackling techniques that we use. It wouldn't make any sense for Joe Lurig to be using terms on special teams that don't align with what we're teaching and verbalizing on defense, and same thing on offense. So we try to use same as teaching methods as much as we possibly can, so there's carryover. I think that's really important. And I think for Sean, that's similar. You know, in terms of, let's be honest, I mean, everybody's running inside zone. Everybody's running some form of gap scheme, whether it's power or counter. Everybody's running outside zone. Everybody's running, you know, vertical stretches and horizontal stretches and high lows. inside triangles, whatever it may be, RPOs. Everybody's doing it. Everybody is getting in spread sets to create space inside. Everybody's getting in bunch sets or snug sets to create space on the perimeter. There's a lot of ways to obviously do this. So it's really more about we're running most of the same plays that we've always run, but it's the packaging, it's the presentation. Whether it is huddling, whether it's going no huddle, whether it's lining up in multiple personnel sets, whether it's multiple personnel sets, whether it's empty, whatever it may be, it's the packaging of how you put it all together. And that's been fun. That's been fun getting with Mike and learning with Mike. And obviously we have similar backgrounds, the guys that both played in the PSAC, guys that both coached in the PSAC. His career jumped a little bit more significantly, right? He went from Shippensburg to Oklahoma State. My journey was a little bit different than that. But he's been great. He's passionate about what he does. He coaches hard. He loves them hard. So it's been cool. I've loved working with him, and I also think Brent Pry's been a big part of that as well, because I do think Coach Yursich had a lot of respect watching Coach Pry and our defense and how our defense is played. And I think he understands, he's been in this long enough that they're going to make each other better. Brent's going to do some things that cause challenges for Mike, and Mike's going to do some things that cause challenges for Brent. And the last thing I'll say is I've always been a big believer, all the way back to when I was an offense coordinator and all the way back to when we were running pretty much our system at Vanderbilt and early on at Penn State, the system that I was running as an offensive coordinator, that I was running a system that was best for our team. So what I mean by that is it's not about the ego as the offensive coordinator, the ego of the defensive coordinator to be leading the nation. It's about having complementary units, right? So our defense is going to get some power football, power formations, power personnel groups, and power plays. So they're going to be prepared to play Wisconsin, but also have elements that if we end up playing Washington State, that they've played that type of offense. So you'd like enough of that in your offense and in your defensive packages that you're getting prepared for this different styles that you could get throughout a year, if that makes sense.
Dave Jones.
Hi, James.
Hi, Dave.
How do recruiters and coaches in general discriminate against wide receivers of the size of Parker Washington, and what do you have to see in a kid of that size for you to pull the trigger on offering him?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question, and I guess the way I would say, Dave, it's probably no different than any other walk of life, right? If you're deficient in one area, whether it's by no fault of your own or not, you're deficient in a certain area, whether it may be height or whatever it is, then you better have other unique or special qualities to make up for it. I think, Parker's an example, KJ's an example, right? KJ had other elite qualities that made up for the fact that he wasn't 6'2". And I think Parker's similar in terms of, you look at Parker's intelligence, his ability to learn the system as a true freshman and play, at a pretty high level without, a whole lot of mistakes from an assignment standpoint. When you talk about his ball skills, I think he's got elite ball skills. I've always been a believer as a receivers coach and as an offensive coach, elite ball skills make you bigger and make you faster than what you are. And what I mean by that is when your catch radius is similar to someone that's 3 inches taller than you, because your ability to go get the ball and be able to consistently catch the ball on your fingertips, you're faster because some guys are going to have to slow down, stop, secure the ball, and then regain their speed, where a guy that's got just tremendous confidence in his ball skills can just reach back and contort their body, pluck the ball, and not lose much speed. So other unique qualities like that. I think the other thing, and Dave, normally I would say this, but I don't know if you've had the opportunity to, when you see Parker in person, he's not a little guy. He's got big features. He's really built like a running back. You're going to look at his lower half, and he is thick and powerful. He literally looks like a running back with the way he's built. So I think he's got enough unique other qualities that make up for him not being 6'2". And I think, as well as I do, whether it's college or at NFL, are they maybe the exception, but there's still a bunch of them out there that are having very successful careers.
And our last question will go to Ryan Parsons.
Hey, James. So just going back to the, top-heavy early schedule. Hey, do you guys have a game plan for getting game speed reps for some of the backup quarterbacks, since up to this point they don't really have that?
Well, if your point is they haven't had game speed reps, there's nothing that we can do to create it based on the way, if I am understanding your question correctly, there's nothing that we're going to be able to do to solve that question or answer your question, because they've had game speed reps in practice since they've been here, and they'll continue to do that. And obviously, as guys continue to move up the depth chart like Taquan has, it creates more of those opportunities. But obviously these guys have had full speed reps since they've gotten to Penn State, but it's not going to change until they obviously get into games, if I'm understanding the premise of your question.
Thank you very much, Coach. We will be joined momentarily by Joe Lorig.
Recording stopped.